Nina Turner's hands trembled slightly as she closed her laptop, the soft click echoing in the empty office. The city skyline outside the window was a blur of steel and neon, cold and unyielding, just like the voice she had heard all morning. Her boss, Mr. Langford, who never saw the long hours, the meticulous work, or the countless times she put her own dreams aside. To him, she was just an assistant, invisible, replaceable. Her phone buzzed softly on the desk, and she glanced at the screen. A message from her mother. Remember, baby, strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Nina swallowed hard, thinking of the nights she'd spent as a child, lying awake while her mother quietly wept behind closed doors. The silence between her parents was loud with unspoken pain. The bruises on her mother's spirit were invisible but no less real. Her mother had once told her, "The women in our family have dreams that are bigger than the chains they wear." But those chains, broken promises, invisible hurts, had kept Nina's own heart locked away. At 27, she still hadn't had her first kiss, not for lack of suitors, but because her heart refused to open to anyone. Love felt like a risk she couldn't afford. Packing her bags now, she clutched the printed confirmation for Willow Creek Ranch. A week away. A chance to breathe, to find herself away from the crushing weight of expectation and heartbreak. As she locked her apartment door behind her, Nina whispered to the city that had held her captive for so long, "I'm leaving, for me." The ranch was nothing like the city. The crisp air smelled of earth and fallen leaves, and the sunlight sifted through apple branches, casting dancing shadows on the ground. Nina pulled her soft cream sweater tighter around her, the sleeves brushing the backs of her hands, and tugged on dark jeans and worn boots, simple clothes, but comforting. Mrs. Giannakis, the ranch's warm-hearted caretaker, welcomed her with a smile that reached her eyes. "You must be tired from the journey. Come, you'll find peace here." As Nina settled into her cozy room with a quilt stitched by loving hands, her thoughts wandered back to the women in her life, the quiet warriors who loved fiercely but had never been truly seen. How had they survived? How had they held on to hope? For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself a deep breath, feeling the tension in her chest begin to soften. Daylight softened to gold as Nina wandered through the orchard. Her boots crunched on the fallen leaves, and her long locks, dark and glossy, caught the sunlight as she pushed a stray strand behind her ear. She spotted a figure in the distance, a man reaching high into the branches of an apple tree. His strong frame was relaxed, but there was a focused energy about him. He turned and their eyes met, hazel with flecks of gold, warm and unwavering. His dark hair was tousled from the afternoon breeze, and a slow smile curved his lips. "You might want to watch your step," he said, voice smooth, with a faint Greek lilt. "These roots are tricky for city shoes." Nina met his gaze, lips curving into a small, confident smile. "I think I can manage." He stepped down from the ladder, offering a hand that was rough but steady. "I'm Nikos. My parents own this place." She hesitated a moment, then took it. "Nina." The touch sparked a flutter deep in her chest she hadn't expected. Later, as she walked away, she felt his gaze lingering on her, an unspoken question hanging between them. The first evening of her arrival, the warm glow of the porch light spilled into the dining room, casting soft shadows on the wooden table laden with steaming dishes. Nina smoothed the cream-knit sweater she wore, its off-white softness, a quiet contrast to the dark jeans hugged snugly around her legs. The long sleeves stretched over her hands as if seeking comfort she hadn't yet found. As she entered, Nikos looked up from his place at the far end of the table. His hazel eyes immediately caught hers, intense and appraising, as if he were trying to see past her carefully guarded exterior. His gaze traced the delicate curve of her jaw, the soft braids of locks that had escaped her loose bun. The men of the family, unlike the men Nina had known, didn't rush to dominate the conversation or the room. Instead, they moved with quiet grace, pouring wine into glasses, offering plates to the women. Their respect and love for the women in the family was so tangible. It puzzled Nina. Her fingers brushed the warm bread as she reached for it, and Nikos's hand grazed hers as he shifted the bowl closer to her. The contact was brief, but it sent a jolt up her arm. She glanced sideways at him, catching a subtle smirk playing at his lips before he turned his attention elsewhere. Later in the kitchen, Nina found herself alone with Eleni, Nikos's younger sister. Eleni's eyes were kind, but held the same knowing sadness Nina felt tucked away in her own chest. "You carry so much," Eleni said softly, folding towels. "Sometimes the heaviest burdens are the ones no one sees." Nina's throat tightened. Seeing the women here be so open and free, it reminded me of my mother. She never got to chase her dreams. She stayed silent, waiting for love that wasn't there. I promised myself I'd never be like that, but after being here, that promise is starting to weigh on me. Eleni smiled gently. "It's hard to trust when you've seen pain up close, but here, the women are free to be themselves, loved for who they are, not just what they do." Nina felt a fragile hope flicker inside her. For the first time, maybe there was a place where her heart could breathe. The next afternoon, Nina's olive green coat rustled softly in the breeze as she approached the orchard. Her fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, warming her hands. The crisp autumn air smelled of damp earth and ripe apples. Nikos was crouched by a crate, sorting fruit with practiced ease. His dark Henley clung to the lean muscles of his arms, damp with sweat. "You're up early," he said, standing as she approached. His voice was low, teasing. Thought maybe the city girl needed a break. She smiled despite herself. "Maybe I wanted to see if you actually know what you're doing." Without waiting, he took her hand, large and warm, guiding it to grasp the stem of an apple. His body pressed lightly against her back, the heat of him seeping through her coat. She felt the brush of his breath against her temple as he whispered instructions. "Twist gently. Don't force it." The apple popped free in her hand and she laughed, a clear sound that surprised even her. He moved to face her, eyes shining with quiet admiration. "See? Not so hard." Her heartbeat hammered in her chest. For a moment, she let herself lean into the closeness, the safety of his presence. But then the walls stirred, and she pulled back, wrapping her arms around herself. "Yeah, you're right. I guess you do know what you're doing after all." The quiet tension had Nina's warning bell ringing and heart tripping. She did what she's always done, remove herself and emotions from such situations. I should get going," she said softly. Nikos's gaze lingered, a mix of longing and understanding. "I'll see you later, Nina." That night, sleep eluded Nina. She slipped into a charcoal knit cardigan over a cream camisole and loose pajama pants, stepping outside into the crisp night air. The world was hushed except for the whisper of wind and the distant hoot of an owl. The orchard stretched before her, bathed in silver moonlight. A lone figure leaned against the fence. "You wander the orchard at night often?" His voice startled her, low and soft. "Nikos." "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. He stepped closer, the warmth of his body a stark contrast to the cool air. The scent of cedar and wood smoke surrounded him, grounding her in the moment. He draped his flannel jacket over her shoulders. The fabric was heavy and comforting, carrying with it a promise of protection. "This should help. Eleni says the smell on it helped her sleep as a young child," he murmured, eyes holding hers. "And maybe you'll dream of me," he added in Greek, knowing she wouldn't understand. He pulled back, voice gentle. "Good night, Nina." She watched him disappear into the shadows, the jacket still wrapped around her like a fragile shield, part promise, part question. By day 4, the rhythm of ranch life had begun to seep into Nina's bones. She was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a soft burgundy scarf over a cream sweater, the late afternoon sun turning her mocha skin to warm bronze. She sipped hot cider, savoring the rare moment of calm. Nikos appeared, wiping dirt from his hands, his shirt clinging to the taut muscles beneath. He looked at her with a mix of determination and warmth. "Come with me tonight," he said, his voice low. Her brows lifted, curiosity piqued. "Where?" "A bonfire by the river, just family and a few friends, no pressure." She hesitated. The idea of crowds made her uneasy, but the promise of something familiar tugged at her, and the whole point of this trip was to allow herself to feel and live. Okay. That evening, as she dressed in a soft off-shoulder sweater and a long flowing skirt, she caught her reflection and barely recognized the woman looking back. Softer, lighter, but still guarded. The bonfire crackled and spat embers into the crisp night air. Around the flames, laughter and voices wove a tapestry of warmth. Nina's dark curls caught the firelight as she sat close to Eleni and two other women from the family. A soft Greek song played quietly from Nikos's phone, unfamiliar but full of heart. As the women shared stories, Nina felt herself drawn into their world, a world where women were cherished, their dreams honored. Eleni leaned closer. Before this family, I thought love was just pain waiting to happen. I guarded my heart like a fortress. She smiled wistfully. But here, I learned that being loved doesn't mean losing yourself, Eleni said, looking at her husband across the bonfire, who smiled back at her with a wink. Nina's throat tightened, the walls she'd built trembling. I've never really let myself feel that. One of the older women reached out, touching Nina's hand gently. You're safe here, dear. We've all carried wounds, but this family, we heal together. Nikos watched her from across the fire, his gaze steady and full of something fierce. Nico offered to walk her back to the ranch house after the crowd around the bonfire started to dwindle. They walked home along the moonlit path side by side with enough space between them to fit a small child. Nina looked up at Nikos, admiring how the moonlight glimmered in the hazel of his eyes as he spoke about the lake, with a butterfly garden he wanted to show her soon. Just then, gravity decided to take a vacation. Nina's steps faltered when her boot caught a hidden root. She stumbled forward, hand stretched out to the side, instinctively reaching for Nico's arm to ground herself. He moved quickly in front of her, reaching out, his arms wrapping around her waist, steadying her. Their eyes locked, his hazel gaze warm and steady, hers wide with the swirl of fear and longing, and her heart racing in her chest. His hand lingered on her waist, the heat of his touch igniting something raw inside her. Her breath hitched, the nearness overwhelming. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just them. Then she pulled back, heart pounding. Thank you for catching me, she whispered, voice trembling. With me by your side, I will always catch you when you're falling, Nina, Nico replied back, staring into her eyes. The double meaning not lost to either of them. They continued their walk back to the ranch house in silence filled with a new kind of tension. As they reached the porch stairs, he wanted to reach out for her again, to stay in her presence a little longer. Nina climbed up the stairs and turned with her arms closed around herself protectively, almost like she was trying to physically hold together the wall around her heart from opening up. Thank you, she said to Nico, giving him a smile that did not reach her eyes. He nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. Good night, Nina. But the ache between them didn't fade. By mid-morning on the 5th day, rain fell soft and steady, drumming a gentle rhythm on the orchard's leaves. Nina wrapped her scarf tighter, boots sinking into the mud as she found Nikos tending fallen apples. You'll catch a cold, she warned, stepping closer. He looked up, droplets sliding down his jawline. And you're worried about me? Before she could respond, he closed the gap, his voice low and earnest. You've been running from me since the bonfire. At breakfast, during cleanup. Her chest tightened. She looked down at her mud-covered boots, took a deep breath, then looked up into his eyes. I'm scared of what I want and what I've never let myself have. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away a stray wet curl. Her heart thundered. Tell me to stop, Nina, he whispered. She didn't. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling in the cool air. For a moment, the orchard was a sanctuary of fragile hope. Maybe I will, she whispered, but neither moved. Silence was thick with everything unsaid. His hand brushed a stray curl from her cheek, fingers trembling just slightly. The closeness made her breath hitch, the wall she'd built trembling but not yet falling. Just then, thunder rolled, breaking the sky open to pour down light sprinkles that promised heavy rain. Nico looked up at the sky and down at her. That's probably our sign to get back to the house. I agree, Nina said, laughing out as she ran back to the ranch house with him, hands firmly in his. The rain had kept Nina inside all afternoon. She curled up by the window in a soft cream cardigan and worn jeans, her book forgotten on her lap. Her mind swirled, the warmth of Nikos's touch, the soft promise in his voice, and the fear that tightened her chest like a vice. Dinner was quiet. Most of the family had gone into town, leaving Nikos working late in the barn. Nina's fingers hovered over the phone, debating whether to send a message or retreat into solitude. But something pulled her outside. The barn was lit only by a single lamp swinging overhead, shadows stretching across wooden stalls and stacked hay bales. The smell of leather and hay mingled with the faint musk of horses. Nikos was adjusting a saddle when Nina stepped in, the warmth from his body pulling her into the space. "You didn't have to bring this," he said softly, nodding to the plate of food in her hands. "I thought you might be hungry," she replied, voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Stay." She settled on a bale of hay near the door, her heart pounding as he came to sit beside her. The barn seemed to close around them, the quiet thick with unspoken words. His knee brushed hers, deliberate and unyielding. The heat radiating from his body seeped into her bones, stirring a cocktail of desire and fear. "You've been avoiding me again," he said, voice low. She swallowed hard. "I've been scared again." "What of?" he asked. She met his gaze, voice trembling. "Of falling, of losing myself, of trusting someone who might not stay," setting his untouched food aside. His hand found hers, warm and sure, fingers weaving with hers like a lifeline. His other hand cupped her jaw, thumb tracing the line of her cheek. Her breath hitched as he leaned closer, lips brushing hers in a tentative kiss that deepened with urgent tenderness. But then, suddenly, the floodgates of emotion overwhelmed her. Her chest tightened. The air grew thin. Panic clawed its way up, stealing her breath. "I'm sorry," she gasped, pulling back, hands trembling. Nikos reached for her, arms wrapping around her, anchoring her. His voice was steady, calm. "Breathe with me." Her breaths came fast and shallow, heart racing, but his presence was a steady pulse beneath the storm. Slowly, she let the panic recede, leaning into the warmth of his embrace. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I've spent my whole life holding back. I don't know how to open up." He held her tighter. "Then let me help you open up. Just for tonight, be here with me." Her tears spilled free as the tension broke. Raw, real, vulnerable. Wrapped in his arms, Nina felt the walls she'd built for so long begin to crumble, not gone, but softened by trust. He traced soothing circles on her back, whispering quiet reassurances. "You don't have to give me all of you at once," he said. "Just pieces. I'll be patient." Her voice was a fragile breath. "And if I can't?" He kissed her temple. "Then I'll wait as long as it takes." For the first time, she let herself rest in that moment, exhausted from fighting, finally allowing the possibility of love to take root. Outside, the breeze moved in soft whispers, the world quiet except for the steady beat of two hearts beginning to beat in sync. The night of day 6, the orchard was bathed in silvery moonlight, crisp autumn air carrying the scent of damp earth and apples. Nina stood beneath a low-hanging branch, her breath visible in soft clouds. The soft fabric of her off-shoulder sweater brushed bare skin as a cool breeze whispered through the trees. Nikos stepped from the shadows, his presence solid and steady. "Can't sleep?" She shook her head, voice a quiet breath. "Too many thoughts. You're always in the shadows." He smiled, moving closer until the space between them was charged with unspoken promises. "Let me help." Her heart thundered in her chest, a fragile hope igniting. She wanted to believe him, to surrender. His fingers brushed a stray lock from her face, lingering against her warm skin. "You don't have to be afraid," he whispered. Her nerves sparked alive where he touched her, every sense heightened. His hand cupped her jaw, thumb tracing the softness of her cheek. Their eyes locked, hers wide with emotion, his steady and certain. Slowly he leaned in, lips grazing hers in a kiss feather-light and aching. Her hands clutched the front of his shirt, pulling him closer. The world melted away. The orchard, the stars, the doubts, leaving only the heat between them and the desperate ache to finally give in. But her mind screamed for caution, for control. Nikos lifted her gently, carrying her toward the porch swing that creaked softly in the night breeze. He settled her down, then knelt before her, hands resting on her knees, eyes never leaving hers. "You're safe here," he whispered. "With me." Tears welled in Nina's eyes, tears for years of loneliness and fear, now meeting the promise of something new. Her fingers trembled as she reached for him. He caught her hands in his, a grounding force. For the first time, she let the walls fall, not all at once, but piece by piece. They stayed like that, wrapped in the quiet night, hearts raw, real, and full of possibility. She was not sure where this was going to lead, but one thing was for certain. She was not going back to her old life and job. Several months later in spring, the orchard had awakened with soft green buds, the land alive with the gentle promise of new beginnings. Nina stood barefoot on the wide porch, sunlight warming her beautiful mocha skin, as a soft breeze played with the loose locks framing her face. She wore a flowing off-shoulder blouse and a long skirt that swayed with each breath of wind, the freedom in her movements a quiet celebration of all she had overcome. Nikos appeared beside her, carrying a basket of freshly picked strawberries, his eyes shining with the steady warmth that had become her anchor. "Morning," he greeted, voice low and easy. "Morning," she replied, her smile bright and free. His fingers brushed hers, a touch no longer tentative but full of promise. Together they gazed out across the orchard, their home now, a place where love was not feared but embraced. Nina's heart, once so guarded and heavy, now beat with the steady rhythm of trust and hope, here, beneath the wide blue sky and amidst the blooming trees. She had finally found a place to call home, inside herself, and beside the man who saw her worth in full. Thank you for listening to Apples in Autumn. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button, subscribe to Porchlight Stories, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new uploads. What part of Nina and Nikos' journey touched you the most? Share your thoughts and favorite moments in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Remember, sometimes the hardest battles we fight are the ones inside ourselves, but love can be the greatest healing. See you in our next video for another heartfelt story.